I'm Maria Chaleos from the KSL Greenhouse, and I hope you'll join us Saturday mornings 8 to 11 with all of your gardening questions. Today I'm having fun with baskets. Spring is here, and these are wonderful baskets for both spring and summer. I have a couple of ideas for you. You can use them either inside or outside of your home. The first is a basket that I'm creating, hopefully to put out on my patio. And the first thing you're going to need is a good growing medium, some sort of moss for these little plants to go in, because this really is a living centerpiece. It's something that's going to keep on growing. So the first thing we're going to do, and the great thing about all of these creative ideas that we're bringing to you is that you can really use your own imagination. These are baskets that I had around my house that I've had for several years that I've decided to use just in a different way, repurpose them. And I love that because we're recycling things and not having so many things go to the landfill. So that's one of my purposes. And I also love to buy plants on sale and reuse little plants that I've used in other projects. Many of the succulents we're using today have come from one of our other projects. So they've already been hardened off. And that really is important because we don't want the roots of these little plants to get moldy or to get absorbed in water. So many of these little plants have already been hardened off, and I just set them in the soil so that they would be okay and still continue to grow. But they've been hardened off, but you can see that while they were in my Christmas tree, they still grew roots. So these are living centerpieces. So back to our moss. Depending on where you want to put the moss, you don't have to put it all over the basket. I'm thinking I'm just going to start with the top and just see how it looks. So you need the moss, you need some sort of twine or some sort of floral wire to hold the moss onto the basket. And you can use some other mosses to fill in if you want a little bit of extra green inside of there. You're going to need a spray bottle, and you're also probably going to need some floral pins. Now the floral pins are going to be important to hold your little succulents in place. These are floral pins that I just made from floral wire. You can find them easily in any of your craft stores as well. So again, I'm going to start at the top and decide just how much of the moss I'm going to use. And then when I kind of get an idea of what I want to do, I'm going to start wiring it on there. Now remember, this is where the plants grow, so you want to have a nice growing medium. I might actually pick a different type of moss here to put on top to make sure that the roots have a nice area to grow in. And it takes a minute to really arrange the moss so it doesn't look like you just put a piece of carpet on top of a basket to make it look more natural. I like to at least have it look like it's still a natural element. I want to make sure and match the consistency, and I don't like this one. It's just a little too thin. Gonna leave that. Once I think I have enough moss, about the length that I want on the top of the basket, then I'll start using my floral wire. This is a little thicker than most, but I kind of like the way it looked. So we'll see if I actually, we'll see if I actually like it when we're working with a project. If not, I also have some other things that I can use. The twine will work nicely as well. If you don't like that twine look, you can use the thinner floral wire in your project. You don't have to keep the wire all one piece, but it does kind of help to keep it all together. So I'll turn this and kind of let you see what I'm trying to accomplish. It's looking more like this. I'm going to start just with the top of my basket and not do the entire basket. If you have enough succulents, you can certainly do the entire basket. Then cutting it off when I'm done. And tucking it under so that we don't see it and we can hide it a little bit more as we work through the project. And we can add more of the moss as we go as well. I'm seeing kind of a blank spot back here. And again, you want enough moss to allow those little plants to grow well. All right, so then you're going to try to decide where you want to place your plants. I know for the middle of my basket, I have picked a larger succulent that I'm eventually going to place down inside the basket here. One thing you want to be aware of, if this is going to be inside of your home, you're going to want to have some sort of plastic liner or plastic little plate underneath that to make sure that you're not getting water on your table. But that's what I'm going to use. So I've already chosen that. Then I'm going to choose probably what's going to be one of the focal points. So I have to decide what I want people to see at the middle, and then I'll work out from the center of that arrangement. These are all hardy succulents, which means that they will grow outside in Utah, for one thing, under very cold temperatures. I think I like this guy just because he's bigger. So I'm going to place him there. And again, that's where I'm going to grab my floral pin. I'm going to poke a little hole with my scissor into that moss where he's going to go. So his roots are going to go deep into the moss in the center. Shaking some of the soil off of there. I'm going to place him right at the center. And then I'm going to use that floral pin very gently. You have to be really careful with these little leaves to make sure that you aren't going to hurt them. You can either place the pin underneath and through that stem, which is probably a better idea than on the leaf. And so then you can see it's held in there very nice and snugly. Okay, and then I'm going to work around the project, decide what I want to see next. I'm looking for two different plants to put on either side that are a little bit similar, just kind of for balance. And I'm going to select these two little guys. Again, deciding where I'm going to place them. And then poking a hole nice and deep into that mesh. And placing the little plant in there. Again, using one of the floral pins through the base or the stem of that plant. Whoops, I don't want it to go all the way through to the top. And I'm really holding it gently, even though it looks like I'm mushing him. And then we're going to continue to work our way around. You also want to be careful not to, when you put your floral pins in or when you're making your other holes, not to push out the other succulents. You can see when I was making the hole for this next plant that I kind of pushed this guy out. So I'll have to re-pin him in there. Now this one's not quite as large with quite as large a base, so I had to actually put that little pin right outside of one of those little leaves. Okay, and then I'm going to continue to fill in as I go. Not just selecting different plants, they don't have to match. You don't want to make it too perfect, too even. You'll know from artists, they like it to be uneven. It's more natural if it looks uneven. So don't worry about trying to make it look even. Just worry about what the texture looks like and how you're enjoying how your project's coming together. And again, you can just put as many or as few succulents as you want in the project. I really wanted to put at the very top something that dangles just a little bit. So I've picked this little plant. And I'm actually going to leave these roots intact and then tuck them inside the moss after, because I want this plant to live. I just love this so much. It's such a beautiful little plant. And I want to make sure that it survives. So then I'm going to place them at the top and then let them dangle. And then I'm going to cover the roots with more moss. And I really like this because it's adding a little bit of blue to our project. And you can arrange and make them look perfect. Little dangling plants look a little more perfect as you go. I kind of love that dangling effect. Let's anchor him just a little bit better. Try not to smash him. I feel like I want to keep some height on the ends here. And then when you're getting close to the end, you think maybe you put in enough plants. You can put some moss in the bottom if you like. Stabilize the little plant in there and tuck moss around them. I've actually decided to go ahead and repot this little plant in a better pot, a nicer looking pot. You'll notice that it has drainage in the bottom because they don't like their roots to be wet. Set them just right in there. And then tuck the moss around. Each of these projects is so different, and it's all about your creativity, your imagination. Whatever you do isn't going to be wrong or right. It's just fun to have something to create in the colder months before we can actually get out in the garden and start digging. And look what a beautiful creation we put together in just under an hour. You're going to keep this alive through the summer is to make sure you water these little plants. Since they are so small and in such a thin growing medium, they're going to need to be watered once every 7 days. Don't water them more than that. And when you do water them, use a spray bottle and just getting around the base of the plant, trying not to get in right on the leaves of the plant. Succulents really don't like their leaves or their petals to be wet. So just watering really well around the outside of the plant. If it was a bigger project, you'd want to soak it down like every couple of weeks, but since we aren't going to have that. If you're going to use this indoors, you're going to want to take it outside or put it over the sink while you're watering it to make sure that you don't damage your table. And the same for this little guy. He's going to be watered about every 7 days. Again, around the base. They don't like to be soaked. And make sure when you're watering this guy that he's completely dry before you water him. Just put your finger inside and make sure it's completely dry. If you're looking for a simpler project, a simpler basket, there are easy ones to do. You can buy the basket and then just place the plants inside the basket. What I've done is these are plants that I'm getting ready to plant outdoors, and the plants in this basket are inside the little containers. And I've just fit them in there very snugly, and then very gently I've tucked moss all the way around them. And that's just a very simple project that you could use for your Easter dinner table or any summer picnic that you're having. Just a really beautiful centerpiece. And I hope you'll join Ton and I on Saturday mornings from 8 to 11 for the KSL Greenhouse. Have fun.